All right, so this is just a quick video on this. I got an air conditioner here, and briefly what happened was I got it all hooked up, and then one of these joints right here, the flare fitting wasn't done correctly, yours truly, and all of the refrigerant leaked out. So quickly, you can go onto the side of the unit right in there. I'll try and zoom in on this. You can see that this one requires R32 in the amount of 640 grams. So that has all the information you need right there on the external unit. So I determined that R32 was my refrigerant, and so I purchased R32. Train went by there. So I got the R32 on Amazon. There's lots of sources for this, but I found the best. So R32, this particular one does not have a siphon hose in it. You can see there. So the bottle has to be set upside down. They say just leave it in the box. This is the top of the unit. I don't have it set up completely yet. It'll be flipped upside down when I'm draining the fluid out of it. There's your valve. It's hooked up. Set of gauges. So basically the setup is this. I have a valve here that actuates the pin here to open up the system. These two valves are open through the split, so that opens up the entire system, clear up through the internal unit, back down through the other return line, and through into here. You hear an AC unit running right now, but it's that one over there. It's a different unit, different system. So these two valves are wide open. This one is currently closed. I'm going to hook up my vacuum pump here momentarily, and then we're going to vacuum the system out, pull all of the air out of it, and that pulls, it should be empty right now. I left it empty, but what it'll help do also is pull out the moisture. So right now I've got it hooked up to the tank. I was just fiddling around with an adapter there. I'll detach that off camera, hook it up to the pump, and get back, and we will drain this system of oxygen, well, air and moisture. Okay, so I now have the vacuum pump is hooked up. It's plugged in. The vacuum line is the yellow line, comes up into here, goes through. This is just a purge valve. If I took that off of there, you'd see there's a little bicycle like stem valve that you can purge there. You can just get something and press that, and it'll purge the line, which we're not going to do for vacuuming. We'll do it on the filling mode, and I'm going to do it a different way anyway. I'm probably just going to crack the fitting there to purge it. It's a little bit easier than messing with this fitting. So these are all done up tightly, just finger tight, no wrenches. This is done up tight. This valve is currently off. So the vacuum line comes up to here, through here, and back through here. This valve is also currently off. So I could turn that one on. So my vacuum is going to come up through here and back through here, and it's going to vacuum out the system. So we're going to fire up the pump, and when I do, I'm going to reach over and turn on this valve, which means screw it in, which will actuate a pin into there and open up the system. That's going to suck all of the moisture out into the pump, and we may even see some moisture coming out of here in the early stages. It's quite humid right now. It's probably, I think it's around 85% humidity. It's June 2023 here in Japan, so it's quite humid. We just had a major thunderstorm this afternoon, so we have high humidity, and it's highly recommended to vacuum that out. So I'm going to do it for probably 10 or 15 minutes just to make sure that it's good and clean and has as void of moisture as can be. So throw in the pump and open the valves, and away we go. Oh, okay, we've had our first hitch. It's not plugged in inside. Let me get that plugged in. Hey, could you plug in that orange extension cord for me, please? So here we go with the pump. So nothing's coming out yet because it goes up into the system down to here. As soon as I open this, you can hear the pump change, and it's pulling. And immediately on the gauge, it went to, let's get the light on it right here, it went down to minus 30 inches of mercury. So that tells me that it was already vacuumed, which is great. That's what I left it at. That means it didn't drain down over the last, it's been a month since I was waiting for this gas to arrive. So I'm just going to leave that run for I'm gonna let it go for 10 minutes just to make sure that it's completely void of any moisture. And after 10 minutes of vacuuming the split system out, I'll get back on the camera and we'll do the next step as far as putting the gas in. Okay, elapsed time, just double check here. Yeah, elapsed time of 9 minutes. So it'll be 10 minutes by the time we get to it here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off the vacuum. Nothing changed on the gauge. The gauge stayed at -30 down there. It didn't move from where it started. I saw no moisture coming out of there, although there's a little bit of moisture on there. I think it might be partly oil. Of course, I'm doing this at night just about because that's when I do these things, I suppose. So this valve is open. I'm going to turn that off. When I do, I'm going to close this valve as well because we're going to undo the yellow line and put it on the tank. And so there is a chance that some moisture could get in there and into our system. We don't want that. Plus, we don't want the system to drain down. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to turn this off. You'll hear the pump differ. Nope, pump didn't differ. And that's because we have a complete negative on there. Turn the pump off. Now with one hand, because I'm trying to video this at the same time, you should hear a rush of air coming in here. A little bit, not too much. Okay, we'll put the lid back on that. For now, we're through with the pump. We're going to use the pressure from the tank through this yellow hose now to inject into the system. So I've had to use an adapter. You can see there's a that's probably a 5/16 down to a 1/4 inch adapter. This tank came that way, and that's fine. It came in the kit that I bought, to be expected. So I'm going to set the camera down and be right back with you. Okay, I've tightened up those fittings there just by hand. It says pretty plainly here in Japanese, but it's pretty easy to understand. No tools on this. You don't need tools on any of this. That's hand tight. This is hand tight. Everything's hand tight. So currently this valve is off. We still have, as you can maybe see there, we still have a vacuum in the system, and that vacuum exists from this valve into our system. We're going to leave that all on and open, clear up into there. The next thing is to take our tank of gas and we're going to invert it as the imagery shows here. R32 gas without a siphon hose. So there's no hose from the valve here extending into the tank where the gas sits, the liquid gas sits on the bottom. There'll be a vapor on top and liquid on the bottom, especially as you use it down. So what we're going to do is we're going to invert the tank. It says leave it right in the box, use it right in the box, so that's what I'm doing. I'm going to put it on my scale. Once it's stabilized, then we'll zero the scale out and go from there. Okay, I've got the box upside down on the scale. Scale is still not on yet because we have one more thing to do before we turn on the scale. We're going to purge the system. So the way to do that, I've got a valve here. I could use that valve to purge. I've got to unscrew that all the way and push something in there to purge it. The other way is just to undo this fitting a little bit. Not so much that it falls off, but just undo it so it's loose, because there's going to be some residual air in this line. So what we want to do is we want to open the valve and purge that of air, and you'll run gas up in there and you'll see it spray out. And when it does, turn that, close that fitting, and then this will just be full of the R32 gas, and we'll have no air in the system. Maybe there could be a minute amount in the infrastructure of this manifold, but it won't be that bad. So I don't know if I can do it on camera because I got to reach underneath there and get that valve, but we are going to, I could flip this over. Okay, for purging it, I've just put it on its side here. I don't know if this is going to work. It's really hard to do one-handed. I'd like to get it on a bit of an angle if I could. Maybe that'll work. There's a bit of an angle. We should be getting gas instead of... so I'm going to open the valve there, and when I do, you should see it come out of here. Okay, so I've purged it. You saw some gas come out and it created some frost around there. So now that yellow line is completely purged. Now we can take our box of R32, set it on our scale, straighten everything out here. Okay, now we're going to turn on the scale. Now this scale has a maximum of 30 kilograms. Oh, it's moving, so it's going to take forever. Let's get that. You can't have any movement with that box. And of course we do, because it's a scale in motion. So let's just give that a minute to calm down. So currently this valve is off. We still have a negative 30 on our suction, and that's in the system up to this blue valve, the low valve. Once I open that valve on the tank, it's going to inject the fluid into here, and I need to measure. So we're already zeroed at 0 grams. Now the unit itself calls for 640 grams. So I'm going to open that valve until we have 640 grams. So I'm going to open the valve off camera here just for a second. Okay, so I've opened the valve on the cylinder. This valve is still closed. We're still at negative 30. That's the pressure, the negative pressure coming up into the valve, into the gauge. I've opened the valve on the cylinder, so now the fluid has flown up into here, and I saw it come into the little window there. You could see it come in. So now all that's left to do is we're going to open this. Oh, we got to zero the. We have to zero the scale. Okay, scale's at 0. So I'm looking for a loss of 640 grams on there. So I'm going to open this valve until I see a loss of 640 grams. And I can hear it going in. And I can see the number declining, so there's a negative symbol. So we're going to go in for about 30 seconds. And we're going to stop and let it stabilize a little bit. It stabilizes pretty much immediately. 150. And again, we're looking for 640. A loss of 640. Okay, so I've opened this valve again. Pressure's up to 200 on there. Incidentally, the high side is completely shut off. You can see the gas flowing through there, through the little observation window. I don't know if you can see that. It's so dark out here. And we're to 400 already, so I'm going to stop it, let it stabilize. In the split system, it has to go up and in and back down. So we'll let that stabilize a little bit. 400, we're down to 410 grams. So we're going to go open the valve again. Fluid's flowing. And coming up on 500 grams. There's 500. And 550. 590, 600. Okay, I'm going to slow it down because we're coming up on 640. All right, there's 640. 600, and I've turned off the valve and it's stabilized at 638. With the valve on, with the valve off, this has stabilized. Now I have R32 and it says at 40 degrees, that's the pressure. So it looks to be well pressurized. We're on the low side of 640. It's dropped to 638. So I'm going to open the valve, 34. I'm going to open the valve again just a smidge more. Go above 640. And part of what we might be looking at here is as I play with this system here, I don't know if it's pulling on that. So looks like we've stabled it at 645, 646 grams in. And according to the information here on the placard on the side of the machine, we were looking for 640 grams of R32 refrigerant in. So I don't even know if you can see me, it's so dark out here anymore. The next step, I'm going to go inside. I'm going to leave the valve off on the gauges, on the set of gauges. The low pressure valve will stay off. I'm going to go inside, turn on the AC unit, have it run on full cold and cycle a bit. And we're going to look for two things. We're going to look for frost forming down here on these. If frost forms down on these, then we know we've got a lack of refrigerant. And also cooling. Make sure that the unit itself will actually cool. So I'm going to head inside, turn on the cooler, and let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm inside. Let me headlight here maybe. We had it unplugged because we weren't using it. We didn't want somebody to inadvertently turn it on. So I'm going to plug in the unit. It's saying, hey, I've been plugged in. It's sensing that. This is a pretty basic unit made by Corona. I'm not sure. So pretty basic unit. All we're going to do, I'm not sure if that green light needs to stop flashing or not, but I'm going to try and turn it on. Oh, there it goes. So right away it started. Just going to open that gate. I don't know if that opens automatically or not. At any rate, so we've got the unit running. Minus 20 is as cold as it gets. It goes up from there. So I've got it on max cold. We're going to go outside now and look for signs of frost on those fittings or on the pipes. Okay, we're back outside. Here is the visual of the connecting lines, and I don't know if you can see in the camera, it's really dark. They are cold. Yes, they're cold, of course, because they have a refrigerant running through them, but there is zero frost on there whatsoever, so that's great. I'm going to tidy these up, tape them all shut, and wrap them all the way down, give them as much protection as I can. So that's good news. Our drain line is functioning. It's leaking or dripping water, so that's perfect. So I could release more refrigerant in there if I wanted. I've put in 640 grams, that's what it called for. I'm not going to put in any more. My operating pressure is just under 150. I call it 140, a little over 140. I don't have a gauge for R32 on here. The gauge for R22 says we'd be operating at about 26 degrees at that pressure, and that's about right. It's about 20, yeah, it'd be right, about 26 degrees out here. So that's a good verification for your pressures. So for shutdown, all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off this valve. Of course, it's to the left because it's a pin, and that will disconnect the refrigerant system from the main system. Next, I'll come up here and I'll turn off this valve, which is already off because I wasn't putting any more refrigerant in. And so now the only valve that's open is this guy on the top of the container, which I can take and flip over. Okay, and now I just turn off the valve on the top of the tank. That's good and off. And now all I have to do is disconnect my system. We still have pressure in there, but that's simply because we haven't released it. As soon as I release that, you'll see that goes down. So that is it in a nutshell. We have replaced the refrigerant, we've replaced refrigerant in this system, the R32, and we've got a working air conditioner. So pretty straightforward. I made this video mostly for me. If I ever have to do this again, I can remember everything. I've also made a few notes. I'll type those up. Maybe I'll throw those on the bottom in the comment section or in the video here so we can see that for later on. But that's it for now. So thanks for watching. I hope this video helps you. And got any questions? I mean, you can post them. I don't know if I'll be able to answer them, but I'll do my best. All right. Cheers. So the tools you're going to need for this job, pardon the shadows because it's late now and it's getting dark. You're going to need a set of gauges to do this. You're going to use the low side. You're going to need a filler port, maybe an observation gauge is nice, and then this is your suction that goes to the split unit itself. You need a couple of hoses with the applicable adapters. The R32 bottle that I got was 5/16, and my hoses, of course, are only 1/4 inch. So it came with an adapter, the set that I bought, which is great. If you don't have that, you'll need it. You'll need some sort of valve that will actuate, some sort of valve mechanism that will actuate the valve in there for turning it on. That will ultimately attach to one of these hoses. You'll need an Allen key for opening the two valves, top and bottom on there. You'll need a suction pump, a vacuum pump, and that, again, I bought all of this stuff I purchased on Amazon. This was purchased separately. The vacuum pump was purchased separately. This came as a kit. There's a box inside, came with a full, there's another hose and a bunch of other fittings. And then of course you'll need your gas, the R32 gas. And last but not least, you'll need a scale, a digital scale. This one is in 1 gram increments, which was totally fine. I don't need much more finite than that. Maximum 30 kilos because this is 3.7 kilos. So the scale can certainly handle it. So there's an overview of all the tools that you'll need to do this job. Pretty quick and dirty, but you know what? It worked. Really, at the end of the day, it's worth knowing how to do all this stuff yourself. And now I've got the gear, I can do more. So I've only taken 640 grams out of this. That means I can do a whole bunch more air conditioners. This one took a lot. 640 is a lot for an air conditioner. This guy over here only takes 460 grams of the same R32. So this one, for whatever reason, took 640, and that's up to a 10 meter line. They allow up to a 10 meter line for that. So, all right, that's it in a nutshell. It's getting dark out here. It's hot and humid. I have air conditioning now, so I'm gonna go in, relax, and have one of those India Pale Ales that arrived in the mail today. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions or comments, leave them below, because I'm keen to hear them. I'm always learning too, so whatever we can figure out is awesome. Yeah, catch you next time.